Okay, this is the first section of your book, the SAT book. Okay, I'm going to explain this page in greater detail now. Okay, actually, this is you actually can work it out, but then it gives you some idea. Okay, uh, when you have let's say a negative value that's more than -1, what happened when you have exponential or you have an odd exponential result? Okay, now let's start out with W. W, you look at it, is a value that is more than -1. Okay, it's more than -1, can be -5, -10, or -1.2, or that. Now, what happened is, he's saying that if you have an even exponential result, that means you have a 2, you have a square, 4, you have 6. What happened is, if you have an even result, this negative will cancel off each other. Okay, if you have a exponential of 4 here, the negative will cancel. So what happens is you get an end result. Okay, and if you increase, let's say comparing -2 and -4, the -4 will, because it's positive, after you put in the even exponential, it will become bigger, like -2 versus -4. -2, you square it, you become 4. If you have -4, you square it, you become 16. Okay, that is what it mean by increase. Okay, the absolute value here, that means here is referring to the result is positive. Okay, absolute value positive, and this positive value will increase. That means, as I explained to you, -2, if you square it, versus minus 4, this one got a 4 versus 16. Now you get a positive value. Positive value means, absolute value means positive, and it is increasing. Okay, now and then it's positive. Why? Because minus times minus. Okay, it become positive. Then absolute value increase. That means the positive value increases as the x become -2, -3, -8, it become bigger. Okay, now if it's negative, what happened? For example, if you yeah, odd. Okay, odd means, sorry, I thought it's negative. It's odd means you got a 3. Okay, you got a 5, a power of 5, 3, 7. Remember, if it's odd, for example, -5 to the power of 3 is actually -5 times -5 times -5. Now let's look at the sign first. Minus times minus become plus, plus times minus become negative. And then you look at the number, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Okay, so if you have an odd number here, the value is always, if you have a negative base, is always negative. Provided it's negative base lah. We are talking about anything that is less than -1, that means -2 onwards. Okay, now so you will notice that it's always negative. Okay, when your base is negative and you have an odd exponential, you're always a negative. If you put a 5 here, you're also negative. Okay, now if you talk, okay, now next is absolute value increases. What it's saying is, now that we got -125. Let's say comparing this, -2, 3, -4 versus okay, 3, this minus 8 versus minus 64. Now, when you say absolute value means you take the positive value. Okay, absolute means you put the two lines, so you take the positive 8. And then you put the two lines, you take the positive value, is 64. So as the base becomes smaller and smaller, the absolute value increases. Now, if your base is exactly minus 1, what happens? Minus 1. If you have 2, minus 1, you have a 4. This is talking about even exponential. You will always get 1. This one also 1. Minus 1 to the power 6. You also get 1. Okay? Always 1. Okay? Now, you have minus 1 to the power of 3. Minus 1 to the power of 5. As I explained earlier here, you always get a negative and a 1. It's a negative and a 1. So it's always negative 1. Okay, now x. X is a value in between 0 to minus 1. Okay, now let's look at this x. X is somewhere between 0 to minus 1. For example, minus half, minus 3 over 4, minus 1 over 3, minus 2 over 5. Okay? Now, if you have an even root, as usual, minus times minus become positive. So it's always positive. But you have an odd root, it's always negative. Okay? Now, let's take, for example, this minus half time. Let's say we say to the power of 4, 2 first. So it's 1 over 4. You take minus to the power of 4, become 1 over 16. Okay, if you take minus 1 over 2, increase to 6, it becomes 6, become 4, becomes 71 over 72. So if you arrange it 1 over 4, 1 over 16, 1 over 72, now the value here, from here to here, it becomes smaller. From here to here, it becomes smaller. So what it means is the absolute value decreases. Since this is already positive, is already the value is positive, so you don't need to change. Okay, so you can see that 1 over 4, by the time you reach become 1 over 6, this is smaller than this. This is smaller than this. 1 over 72 is smaller. So the value become decreases. Similarly, if you take odd root, okay, odd root, what happens if you have an odd root? You will notice that you always have a negative. If let's say you have a 3, you have a 5, you will have a negative value. Okay, and then similarly, because it's a 1 over reciprocal, so every time you increase the power and multiply, it becomes smaller. Okay, you get it? For example, let's take an example. 0.2 times 0.2, this is actually 1 over 5, becomes 0.04. If I multiply more, it becomes 0.008. This is 1 over 5 times 1 over 5 times 1. You can see the number become less and less. Okay? The difference between even and odd root is only one is negative, positive, one negative. But in terms of the absolute value, okay, it's always decreasing. Okay? Like in this case, you take a negative one, no doubt you're negative. Okay, you got a negative here. But then if you take the absolute value, mean you remove the negative, just consider the positive. It's always decreasing. Okay, now next one.